Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting of the 10th of August. I'd like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're gathered and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I declare this meeting open at 9 a.m. Due to the Queensland Government's current COVID-19 restrictions, this week of committee meetings will not have a physical public gallery. The health, safety and wellbeing of Logan's staff and community is Council's top priority during the COVID-19 pandemic. As such, I would like to mention that an additional special welcome to the members of our community who are watching from Livestream home today, all 10 of you. Hello, it's lovely to see you all. And I'd also like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcasted and audio recorded. I remind attendees to practice social distancing and to take the necessary safety precautions. As today's agenda does contain a confidential report, I note that the proposed motion to suspend section 7.11A6 of the Local Government and Committee Meeting Code for the purposes of audio recording the closed sessions in today's meeting for Council's internal confidential use only is now displaying on the screen behind me. Would someone like to move that motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Seconded by Councillor Stemp. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. I have not received any leaves of absence because we're all here. Isn't that fun? Before I get into the reports, I'd just like to see if anyone has general business for the Director of Innovation and City Transformation, Dr. Scott Burke. He's waiting outside and we can bring him in if you have any questions. No? Excellent. Then Dr. Scott can go back to work and I'm sure he's thrilled about that. Item 4.1 is a deputation from Invest Logan, which we will be deferring due to the restrictions on the number of people who can attend the building and attend the room at the moment. On the screen there is an amended motion that defers this presentation to a future City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting for further consideration. Would someone like to move that motion for me, please? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Seconded by Councillor Stemp. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 4.2, which is a report on the Economic Development Strategy from 2016 to 2021 annual report. Before we move into any discussion on this item, do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they would like to declare? There being none, I'll now refer to Tate so that he can speak to his report. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Chair. It is my pleasure to speak to this year's Economic Development Annual Report. The Economic Development team is committed to facilitating economic growth within the City of Logan by attracting inward investment and supporting the existing business base in its capacity to grow and provide valued employment opportunities to residents. This report provides an overview of the key actions and outcomes achieved in the 2020 to 21 year across relevant strategic documents, as well as overall figures achieved throughout the duration of our suite of strategies that are set to expire in 2021. All targets across our 2021 action plan were met or exceeded. Direct activity across the core economic development strategies has delivered a total of $229.2 million of investment within the city and 760 new or retained jobs. Our local connections officers over the past year engaged and supported 145 major businesses, sustained COVID recovery activities, delivered key events, including the Joint Chamber of Commerce's and state budget breakfasts, Small Business Month, and continued to drive the growth of the Logan Jobs platform. Global Connections officers, under challenging circumstances, continued to engage our sister city educational and expert network by adapting to online opportunities for exchange and learning, as well as solidifying ties with state and federal agencies through a proactive contact and promotion of the City of Logan. Our business development officers continued successful allocation of the Investment Attraction Incentive Fund, which attracted 7 businesses, 403 new and retained jobs, and $24 million in capital expenditure. Combined investment attraction promotion yielded a total of 19 projects across a diverse range of industries. Our tourism officers continued to progress prioritised actions from the Destination Management Plan in support of the development of Logan's tourism infrastructure. The progress towards the development and grant funding achieved for the River Iron Discovery Centre has been a highlight, as well as the completion of the business case for Outdoor Adventure and Whitewater Park, the Logan Food Tourism Development Plan, a Logan Short Film Festival feasibility study, and various marketing campaigns. Finally, as our suite of strategies come to a close, we are looking forward to briefing councillors and seeking adoption of a new City of Logan economic development strategy that will guide council's activities and leadership in economic transformation for the City of Logan beyond 2021. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ted. I have a question from Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much for that. So despite COVID impacting the world, Logan has managed to go along with its economic development strategy and connected with businesses, created 400 plus jobs, did you say?
I did, yes. 400
plus jobs. So what measures did we put in place to support businesses during COVID in terms of flipping on a dime? There was, I believe there was a company out at Crestmead that went from one type of production to sanitisation production. Did we support them in any way with subsidies, or is there any subsidies that we put out to businesses during this period?
Through the Chair, thank you for your question, Councillor Lane. So related to COVID-19, there was a range of activities that the team took to address not only local businesses, but to support those businesses struggling who requested assistance. So one of those was in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce's, really identifying who needed assistance. And as a team, the example that you provided, yes, we had staff that, connected to state priorities or state programs that came in and supported those type of examples that you mentioned. So in addition, we created a task force that contacted hundreds of companies directly, businesses, to check on their well-being, to let them know that we were here. And that was a great effort between the disaster management team and LOED. So you also say, how did our economy do during this time? Our business have performed very strongly. Obviously, certain sectors were dramatically impacted and continue to suffer to this day. However, as an overall macro approach regarding development and sustained economic activity, we have continued to go from strength to strength.
Thanks very much. I'm really impressed that officers did contact businesses to see how they were doing. I know that sometimes small business owners can struggle on by themselves, but probably that call may have turned a corner for a lot of people who were thinking they'd have to pull the pin on business in Logan. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Herremeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 6 of the attachment, it mentions under the Logan Art Gallery item, it mentions an action called packaging product. Can you please explain and clarify what a packaging product action is?
Just looking at page 6, which item was that? 5 point?
Doesn't have a number, it's underneath
yep.
the Logan Art Gallery website row.
So packaging product in this term is combining different tourism products together, or packaging experiences, packaging different types of opportunities within the tourism space to sell, to promote. So it could be an activity that wasn't previously marketed or presented as a tourism product, that we can work with people who have those opportunities or experiences and then package it into a marketable product. That's one aspect, and also it can be combining with various operators to work together to generate new products for promotion.
Thank you. And you've mentioned a 2018 demand study and business case for a hotel/service department, and also a 2020 business case for a whitewater park. Can I please receive copies of those documents?
Through the Chair, happy to provide those to you.
Thank you. And on page 2 of the report, it mentions that $564 million has been attracted to the city from those economic development strategies. And then on page 3, it mentions an indirect flow-on effect from these strategies. has been a total economic impact of $533 million. Can you please explain to me how you arrive at the $564 million figure and the $533 million figure?
Through the chair, on page 2, it's referencing, yes, the total suite of strategies from 2016 to the current time. And then on page 3, it's just referencing this financial year, so the 2020-21. So those indirect benefits and the multiplier effect of the investment is captured for this financial year.
And how do you calculate that?
So there's a number of mechanisms. Our core metrics is reliant on data from the businesses that we engage with and when a project is closed. But then we have economic tools available to council to access that benefits. It's traditional economic practice to understand the full impact of investment. So we use these tools to put in our capital figure, and it talks about the multiplier effect or the greater benefit that that money has throughout the economy. So we use those tools available to council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hammerer. Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. Page 2 of the report, just wondering with the Mountains to Sea experience, have we approached Ipswich City Council in regards to the Spring Mountain Reserve where you can actually mountain bike in between the two councils?
Sorry, can you just direct me to the item you're referring to?
It is in the attraction development, so it's in 1.
Yeah.
It's in the yellow part, in the monitor bit, right
Oh,
down the
okay,
bottom.
let's see.
Because I know that I have residents that constantly talk to me.
Yeah.
Sort of.
You can be assured that, yes, we constantly engage our neighbouring councils, particularly through our state government body that has helped support these type of projects. With this one in particular, I'm happy to provide further details later for this one. But this is a very exciting project, and like you said, there's a demand out there that we want to tap into and work with our neighbouring partners to promote.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Are there any further questions? There being none, councillors, you have a recommendation on the screen. Would someone like to move that report? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Seconded by Councillor Kransky. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Before we proceed, do we have a rule that if you're talking, you're allowed to take your mask off? Sorry?
I think we're specifically not having
You
that
can talk
rule.
everywhere else and have your mask off. Why is it in a committee meeting? You can do it in the media, you can do it everywhere else. But I think you should be able to see who's actually talking and have their mask off. So it's mask off if you're talking. I can't see why not.
That's great, but we can't because of the number of people that we've got in the room.
Sorry,
And how long we're going to spend in this room today.
Well, in the media, you're allowed to have your mask off.
That's great.
The Premier has a mask off when she's talking.
When she talks for 5 minutes,
Well, people can't see who's talking.
it's okay. You can hear through the microphone. Yes, Councillor Kransky.
Might I suggest that we just pose this question to the acting CEO and perhaps he can come back with an answer during the break, but in the interim, masks on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was masks on or you have to do it digitally. So that was the choice. But you can raise it with the CEO, Mr. Mayor. The councillors, that is the end of the Economic Development and Strategy Manager's reports. Do you have any general business for Dave Radich? He's outside and I can bring him in if you need him. No? Excellent. We'll then move on to item 5.1, which is a report for the Development Assessment Branch Enforcement Priorities for 2021-22. I'll just wait for the manager. Oh, okay. Oh, we're getting the presentation on this report from the one and only Director, Mr. David Hanson. Before we move into discussion, can we do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they'd like to declare on this item? There being none, take it away, Dave.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through the Chair, yes, the DA Manager is away today unexpectedly, so I'll take carriage of presenting these next couple of reports. This first report, number 5.1, seeks to set clear priorities for the Development Assessment Branch Investigation Services team to pursue, which will see the last parts of a process which we started in 2018 completed. The intent at that time was to implement this work through 2019 and 2020. But Council entered into administration, and then we delayed further because we wanted to make sure that incoming councillors actually understood the work of that investigation team before we came and asked you to set these sorts of priorities. So the recommendations are specific to each of the 4 teams within the DA Branch Investigation Services and read as follows. That the priorities, as detailed in the report of the DA Manager dated 10th of August, be endorsed as follows. Construction Task Force priorities: improved compliance in erosion and sediment control on large construction sites. Land Use Investigation Team, focus compliance on vegetation removal and illegal earthworks. The Building Investigation Team, priority pool safety campaign with a focus on pool enclosures in 2021, and a partnership with Queensland Fire and Emergency Services on the free safe home inspection program. And the Plumbing Investigation Team, the septic spray irrigation replacement program. So these priorities are based on the volume of the complaints received by the team, the risk to the community of the matters occurring, and a desire to focus on proactive involvement by the team wherever possible rather than just a reactive approach. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dave. I don't have any questions, but I fully support the increased enforcement, particularly on land clearing and sediment control. I know when I had my business in demolition and we were working in Brisbane, we were terrified of even letting a clump of clay fall into a neighbour's yard because we knew that Brisbane City Council would crack down on us. And it wasn't like that when I first got elected in Logan, but it's starting to get that way now, which is fantastic. Councillor Harrimeyer, and then Bannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A big issue in my electorate is that we have a lot of residential developments, and there's dozens and dozens of 300 to 400 square metre lots all next to each other. And all at the same time, there's concrete being laid and there's houses being built, and a lot of these 300 to 400 square metre lots don't have a dedicated area to store waste. So they either don't have a skip, or the waste is just left lying around their property, and then the waste ends up spreading across property lines, going all over the neighbourhood, and it starts to really make our beautiful area look quite messy. So number one, is there scope for the Construction Task Force to enforce this sort of storing your waste on your property? And number two, was focusing on that compliance considered as a priority for the task force?
Through the Chair, the obligation is there for developers and their builders who are constructing dwellings on sites to manage the impacts of their waste. My understanding at the moment is that the City Standards and Animal Care Branch have carriage of that through a local law, but I could be corrected on that. But what I would suggest I do is I'll talk to the manager of that branch and just get an understanding of exactly where those lines of sight cross over between the Construction Task Force and that branch. I will say that whether it's stormwater nuisance on building sites or even building work matters, there is more work that we should be doing and potentially more decisions we can make around expanding the Construction Task Force's role on those sorts of matters. So the DA branch is looking at that across the next 6 months as to what potentially we can reorganise across the organisation and make sure that we have the relevant teeth to turn up on site and ask for a problem to be solved. So we'll come back to you on that, Councillor Harrimeyer.
That sounds really great. And also, there's also been reports of some issues with traffic management plans in my electorate. We don't only have a huge amount of residential development going on in my electorate, but we also have industrial and warehousing development in my electorate with massive road upgrades going on from developers. And there's been reports that traffic management plans haven't always been 100% complied to. Is there scope for council or the Construction Task Force to focus on improving compliance with traffic management plans?
Absolutely, there is, through the chair. So it's a conversation that's going on at the moment between the road RIP branch and the DA branch. So where conditions appear in a development approval for a developer to manage the impacts of that development, then there is a direct line of sight for DA branch investigation services to turn up and hold them to account. Some of the older approvals are silent with respect to the connection of traffic management plans through to the conditions of an approval. So there's a bit of a disconnect sometimes that we're trying to manage. But the working relationship across RIP and DA is a good one, but there is definitely opportunities to improve that. So I would suspect you'll see a report to this committee over the next sort of 6 months, coming up with some ideas on how resources can be better allocated and how the work programs of those can be better matched.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Herrenmeyer. Councillor Bannon.
Thank you, and through the chair. I'm surprised about the building one because I know every residential builder has 3 cleans in their contract. As soon as they did the first pad cut, they got to put a side bin on, halfway clean and a final clean. So I'm surprised that any builder would be putting, not having sediment control or the bins there. Like you can make them out of mesh. Like, so that sort of surprises me a little bit for not doing that. It's always been the case, like, well, you always hear about developers and clearing, but I reckon 80% of the complaints that I get are from private people clearing illegally, not developers. So people always give the developers a kicking and council a kicking. But since I've taken the job, I reckon it'd be 80% of the complaints that I get are from people clearing that get caught that aren't developers or builders. They're just people doing their own thing. Has that always been the case, or is it I'm just lucky?
Through the chair, I think you'll find it's always been a bit of a mix, but the unique thing about vegetation clearing is that it's imperative that my team gets out on site as soon as possible to stop it happening. It's one of the few offences that once it's done, it's done. There's we can give orders to re-establish vegetation, but the maturity of that vegetation won't be reached for many, many years. So it is the one absolutely critical focus of the team that when they hear of it happening, we need to get out on site. And that, we don't discriminate whether that's private members of the community or developers. It's all very, very important.
Thank you, Councillor Bannon. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the chair, Councillor Raven. Dave, just thank you so much for the presentation. I know you said it came about during administration, etc., but it actually came about long, long before then, because I remember raising the issue about the sediment control, etc., and development and waste, etc., being scattered all over building sites. So I really want to commend your team for taking it this far, and I'm happy to move the item.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Do we have any further questions? Councillor Bradley has moved the motion on the screen. Councillor Kransky has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimous. No. Oh, you did have it? Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. It'd be a brave man that voted against one of Mr Hanson's reports. Councillors, next we'll move on to item 5.2, which is for septic grey water irrigation replacement program. I know that grey water is very close to Councillor Bannon's heart. Before we move into conversation, do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they'd like to declare on this item? No, thank you. I've just received some excellent advice from the acting CEO, Mr Mayor, that while speaking, we can remove our masks. It's a small win. Well done. That's leadership. That's leadership, Mr Mayor. And now we know that Silvio is watching, so that's a good thing as well. I'll now refer to item 5.2 and let Mr Hanson speak to his report. Please make sure, councillors, that when you finish speaking, you replace your mask.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Report 5.2 seeks to put some criteria around a fund of money that was opened up through the last year's budget process, or the current year's budget process, which was to replace problematic above-ground septic system re-irrigation across the city. The report on page 48 of 166, I hope our numbers are the same, includes a table which seeks to prioritise which ones of these systems we'll be focusing on first. So you'll see that the report directs the funding that was received to the high priority matters only, and just working through the criteria that makes one of these systems fall within the category is the property must be less than 5,000 square metres. The sprinkler above ground spray arrangement is located next to or adjoining a property boundary. Recurrence of the nuisance complaint about foul smell coming from grey water disposal has to be more than 2 complaints to qualify. The septic or on-site treatment system has failed. The grey water sprinkler arrangement has contaminated the soil, surrounding vegetation and grassed areas. The grey water disposal system has contaminated a swimming pool, waterway, dam or local creek, and the grey water disposal system has transferred effluent onto an adjoining property. So we wanted to make sure that this fund of money was aimed at resolving those matters which present the most significant nuisance to neighbours, the most significant risk to public health, and also, as discussed through budget deliberations, also take the pressure off the team from repeatedly representing themselves to sites with no mechanism to actually resolve the matter between parties. So that's why the report has been structured in this way. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Stemp and then Councillor Kransky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hanson, just wanting to check, obviously, that these people are asked to pay, like if there are issues, that we obviously ask them to pay first, and then if they're unable to pay, then that's when this program kicks in. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So as they sit in these low to medium categories, there's a conversation that could be going across a number of years between council and these residents. So the first instance is they need to satisfy their obligation to have a functioning system on their site. I think when it elevates to high risk, though, there's clearly an impediment to that happening. So council needs this fund to resolve those high risk examples.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stemp. Councillor Kransky.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Just a question with regard to HSTPs. Is that picked up in this report, the home sewage treatment plant?
Through the chair, yes. So any system, whether it's septic or tertiary treatment, they all have an obligation to re-irrigate their water. Most modern systems have a subsurface system in place by virtue of the conditions of the approval. So the more modern systems are required to do subsurface irrigation. It's just dealing with those older systems and the spray drift that's occurring through above ground.
So this was just a little bit of an education, so with your indulgence, Mr. Chair. So obviously we're still approving developments in those more rural areas and so on with HSTP systems and so on. What checks and measures are in place to prevent this from occurring in future?
Through the chair, as I said, it's a conditioning exercise. So as those systems have become more sophisticated, our conditions reflect an obligation to install subsurface, so below ground irrigation from the word go. So it's not a problem that's growing as more systems are installed. We're dealing with predominantly historic and legacy issues on older systems here.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Councillor Kransky. Councillor Bannon.
Thank you, through the chair. I just want to say good job. This has been an ongoing drama and people use it as weapons and people put it in their own water tanks and in people's swimming pools and kids getting tapeworm. So I think you've addressed it and it could really solve some problems finally. So awesome job, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Bannon, and I don't have any further questions. Would you like to move the report on the screen, mate? Moved by Councillor Bannon, seconded by Councillor Kransky. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any Development Assessment Manager GB for Dave to answer expertly? Thank you, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the chair. Mr. Hanson, I've messaged the development, emailed the Development Assessment Manager over a week ago and he hasn't replied. Is he on leave at the moment?
No, he is not. He's away today because of ill health. but
Oh,
last
okay.
week he was around, yes.
Okay, so hopefully I'll get a reply then.
Through the Chair, happy if you elevate that to me. I'll deal with it.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. We'll now move on to item 6.1, which is the draft City of Logan Natural Environment Strategy 2021 to 2031. We'll just wait for the manager, Michael Asnikar, to enter the room. While we're waiting for Michael, do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they would like to declare at this time? There being none, we'll welcome Michael down the front and let him know that he can remove his mask while he is speaking, but he has to put it back on when he is finished. And you can speak to your report when you're ready, Michael.
Mr. Chair, am I good to go? You are. Oh, thank you. Okay, draft environment strategy. That's what we're up to. Yep, good. So Council currently has a broad and comprehensive suite of environment-related policies, strategies, plans and programs that demonstrate our commitment to a range of issues such as rivers, waterways, wetlands, vegetation, biodiversity, threatened species, koalas, carbon reduction, climate change, land for wildlife, habitat restoration, conservation agreements, other community partnerships, environmental education and events. So we certainly have a comprehensive and all key areas of environment covered through our plans and programs. One key aim of the draft natural environment strategy, however, is to bring together this very broad suite into an overarching strategy that clearly sets out Council's vision for the natural environment and shows how we are supporting international, national and state environmental goals and targets, but equally how we are responding to the strong community feedback received during the recent community visioning and corporate planning processes, with over 20% of the feedback relating to the importance of the natural environment. The release of this draft strategy is timely in that it responds quickly to the community feedback and fulfils one of the key corporate plan projects. The structure and content of the strategy directly reflects the important themes that emerged from the community, these being that nature is protected, nature is connected and nature is celebrated. The strategy also showcases various facts, statistics and key areas regarding nature in Logan, and in that respect I was really in a row.
Councillors, I'd like to move that we adjourn the meeting. Can Councillor Karansky do that for me? I don't think I need it seconded, but just in case I do, I'll have it done by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour? The meeting will be adjourned for 15 minutes while we deal with this.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillors, thank you for your indulgence while the alarm was sorted out. For people playing at home, there was no emergency. Can I please have someone move to resume the meeting? Thank you, Councillor Stemp, seconded by Councillor Bradley. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Michael, you can carry on from where you left off. Try not to set the alarm off this time.
Will do, Mr Chairman. Thanks for that. Just a few more comments in relation to the draft Natural Environment Strategy. It also showcases various facts, statistics and key areas regarding nature in Logan, and in that respect serves as a useful reference document that can be distributed to schools, environmental groups, community groups, local libraries, etc. The strategy lists a suite of actions which demonstrates Council's commitment towards nature and environment and how they support the strategic outcomes. With Council's endorsement today, we will release the draft strategy for public consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Mr Asnakar, how will this be distributed out for public consultation, and will councillors get the opportunity to obviously engage with the community over this as well, please?
Through you, Chair, so it will be distributed through the usual platforms of the Have Your Say, social media, web, libraries, customer service centres, and we'll certainly be able to provide councillors with some collateral marketing information to allow them to promote the document for feedback as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr Asnakar, I'm just curious, on page 14 of your report, which is 67 of the agenda, it refers to 39,900 native tube stock have been planted by council across the city's riverside parks, etc. Where's that statistic from? Is it just from council in general doing that, deliberately going out and strategically doing along the riverside, or is it also an accumulation of, for example, every financial year I've always done community tree planting days, and sometimes there's been like 1,000 tube stock that have been planted? Is that calculated in here as well, and how long is it over that figure has been going for? Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chair. The figure is a combination of the trees that have been planted in relation to the River Vision program, so our River Trees program, and also the community tree planting programs, which form a component of that. So that figure is an accumulation of the last 2 years' worth of planting.
If I may, through the chair, I'm just curious if it's possible to get some sort of statistics, like how much, in the time that I've been a councillor, how much has actually been planted? Because, like I said, it's every financial year and it's come out of divisional funding. I would really love to know that statistic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Are there any further questions? Would someone like to move the report? Thank you, Councillor Stemp, seconded by Councillor Power. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously, and thank you to Councillor Lane for moving her hand out from behind the Mayor's head. It makes it very easy for me to see she's voting. Councillors, we'll now move on to item 6.3, which is a confidential report. Before we move into any discussion on this item, do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they would like to declare? Oh, sorry, did I skip 6.2? My flow is interrupted. Sorry, we'll go to 6.2, which is the Climate Change Resilience Strategy for 2021 to 2031. No hidden agenda there, Mr Mayor, I promise you. Before we move into any discussion on this report, do you have any conflicts of interest you'd like to declare? There being none, thank you. Michael, you can speak to your report.
Okay, this report presents the outcomes of the community consultation recently undertaken on Council's draft Climate Change Resilience Strategy. At a high level, the community consultation showed strong support for the strategy, with 74% of respondents stating that they agree that Council absolutely has a role in relation to climate change, and similar percentages fully or partially supporting the various aims of the strategy, such as Council achieving carbon neutrality, supporting the community to build capacity and resilience, basing decisions on the climate science and taking climate risk mitigation and adaptation measures. We also had nearly 50 community members indicate that they would be willing to participate in a future community climate resilience working group. The final strategy incorporates the community feedback, providing a roadmap for Council to build climate change resilience across the organisation and in partnership with the community, and identifies a range of strategic actions to support this goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Are there any questions from councillors? There being none, would the Mayor like to move the report? Yes, please, take it away.
Thank you, Mr Chair. That was good. Just want to say, to highlight this report and the previous report, particularly with our corporate plan and how important we see this for the City of Logan and the Council. There's some great work here, great reports, particularly the climate change resilience strategy. When you look through it, we are really doing some good work, and we've got an announcement coming out very soon, which we're holding off on. But tell you what, when I see reports like this and I see the photos, this is a council I want to be part of. I'm very proud to be here today seeing this sort of stuff. We are on the right move, and I think it was Chris Rose that said that if it wasn't for COVID, climate change would be the #1 subject in this world. And today there was a report that came out to indicate that Australia is heating well above what other countries are heating. And compared to, say, New Zealand, we are heating up. And we're going to have some problems with our weather patterns, and it indicates that the southern states are going to be drier and there's going to be less seasonal rain. That could cause some financial difficulties for them, particularly with obviously the drought conditions. Up north, we're going to get more rain, but we're going to get flooding. So there is going to be some difficulties for the world to how they cope with the climate change. But that report that came out today, very, very interesting. I think everyone's aware of it. Of course, you're going to have your doubters out there, that probably the same people that are anti-vaxxers. They don't believe in science, and they just want to put their head in the sand. But I firmly believe in science, and I also think this council is doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I have a sneaking suspicion you just wanted to say that so you could take your mask off for a minute, but they were important words. Would you like to move the report?
Yep.
Would someone like to second the report? Thank you, Councillor Kransky. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, we will continue on to item 6.3, which is the proposed gifting of land to council for environmental purposes. Do any councillors have conflicts of interest they would like to declare on this report before we move into discussions? It is a confidential report. Councillors, do you wish to move into confidential to discuss this report? Councillor Heremiah does. I note that it's necessary to take discussion of this report into a closed session, as it involves commercial negotiations with private landowners relating to a land acquisition process involving the local government, for which public discussion would be very likely to prejudice the interests of local government. Councillor Heremiah, would you like to move us into confidential? Would someone like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Hall. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move into closed session, and the meeting is now closed to the public. Please advise that the meeting is now in confidential session, and therefore the recording of this meeting will be suspended till it reopens, noting that audio recording will continue for internal record keeping purposes. Thank you very much. recording will recommence with a big thumbs up from the cameraman. Thank you. Welcome back to everybody after a very thorough and in-depth debate. We have an amended motion on the screen for councillors to consider. I'll just give the Mayor a moment to read because he was out of the room while we were considering it. Comfortable with that, Mr. Mayor? They're both the same. The adjustment's been the same on both. It's just we're having some technical difficulties at the moment. Would someone like to move that motion, Councillor Stemp? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Kerensky. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Well done, councillors. And thank you very much to the Director of Organisational Services, Robert Strachan Esquire, who has come down to provide us his expert advice. We also, that's okay. We also had a confidential background paper tabled during the confidential part of the meeting. Can I please have someone move that be included in the confidential report? Thank you, Councillor Stent. Is that procedural? So I don't need a second one. It was the document that you saw on the screen. Seconded by Councillor Murphy, just in case I need one. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillors, we will now move on to item 6.4, which is the Recycling Modernisation Fund application. Before we move into discussion, do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they'd like to declare on this item? There being none, I note that the item is confidential. Do councillors wish to move into confidential to discuss this report, or are you comfortable with it as it stands? I'm taking that as being comfortable. No hands raised to move into confidential. For the benefit of the record, the report was considered necessary for any discussions to happen in confidential because the attachments contain commercial and confidence financial information regarding a current procurement. As councillors do not see fit to discuss the matter in this session, I will move straight to the item on the screen, the motion on the screen. Would any councillors like to move this motion? Thank you, Mayor Power. Seconded by Councillor Hall. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously, noting that Councillor Lane is not in the room for the vote. Councillors, that brings an end to the Health, Environment and Waste Manager's reports. Do any councillors have any general business that they would like to raise for the manager? Thank you, Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Mr. Asdakar. This is an easy one for you. Without telling a lengthy yet incredible story, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the above and beyond service that Council has delivered to Division 3 residents in relation to bin collections, including the newly rolled out green bins. I wish to express my gratitude to you, your team and Cleanaway for the dedication to ensuring a smooth transition and great communication for the residents of Division 3. And I can only imagine the whole city. Please pass on my thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Russell. And yes, we've had a busy few weeks, as you know, with the transition. But I'm pleased to say that things are settling in, and yeah, we're looking forward to the ongoing relationship with that service. Thanks. And any escalations, send them my way.
And I would like to say that escalations to Michael after hours, on weekends, on public holidays, he responds to all of them in a timely fashion and gets them actioned immediately, which is a great focus on someone who is really prioritising outcomes rather than process. So thank you very much. My residents are grateful as well. Keep up the brilliant work. Any other general business for the manager? Michael, do you have any general business for us?
Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you very much. There being no further reports, the meeting is closed at 11:06 a.m. The City Infrastructure Committee will begin in 10 minutes at 11:16.